So everyone, and welcome to more How Good Are. Today, well, it's been requested, so of course we're gonna have to do it, and I would have done it eventually anyway, but we're doing it right now. Both Nagisas! Oh no, now I spoiled what the other unit is gonna be that we're gonna review today. Well, we're gonna review both Nagisas today, and of course we're gonna start with the regular one. The Cheese Nagisa, who most people probably already know this, is a dark type Excel Gorilla, and the type, interesting enough, is called Cycles Magia. Cycles Magia. What does that mean? Well, it's just Magia type. It's literally just Magia type. The reason why they added Cycles Magia is because they wanted to be fancy. Like, whoa, look what we can do. We can add Cycles Magia. No, it's just Magia type. The Cycles is just for flavor. There's something about the personal, but I'm gonna not talk about the personal right now. That's a bit for later. But for now, we need to actually look at the stats instead. You see that it's rather offensive. So really high attack, at defense and HP, not that high. She's not that tanky, but her personal is going to come into this, but like I said, that's for later. Now keep in mind for now that at least she does have quite a lot of attack that she can probably, hopefully, put into her Magia, because of course she's a Magia type. If we look at her Connect, we see that she gives attack up 40%, standard, and also Fog on attack and anti-evade. Fog on attack is a kind of effect that is nice to have, I guess, but it's not really something that's super duper powerful. Of course, on one hand, it disables enemy evades. It makes it so that your addict killers, your damage up against targets inflicted with status ailments, it gets popped as well. But overall, just Fog itself is not a very powerful effect. It's one of the weakest status ailments in the entire game. And of course enemies might have status aim resistance, so it's possible that this doesn't even hit on the first attack or something. So overall, this is not that great of an effect, or rather weak. And the only other effect that's on it is anti-evade. Sure, there are some quests here and there, like I keep mentioning EX Challenge quest Hikaru the Horse, where this might be really awesome, but apart from that, also very much not something you really need or want to have around. So overall, the Connect, this is very, very bad, sadly. It's a rather bad Connect, sadly. But the thing is, she's a Magia type, right? So maybe her Magia is really, really good. So what does her Magia do? Damage 4 random enemies. So basically, when you use this Magia, it's going to fire 4 shots. Okay, it's firing 4 shots. Who these 4 shots hits is random, but it can hit the same target multiple times. So for example, if there's only one enemy on the field, that one enemy will get hit 4 times. If there's 2 enemies, could be anything. Maybe one enemy gets hit 4 times, the other one 0. Maybe they both get hit 2 times. Maybe one enemy gets hit 3 times, the other one 1. So it can be basically anything. It's just randomly spread across all enemies. If there's 5 enemies, it's still possible that one enemy gets hit 4 times. It's still possible. So it's very, very random, of course, and is best against a low number of enemies. Like against 1 enemy or 2 enemies, this is quite alright. Like, this is probably where you would use this. You would use this against singular or a double enemy, but if you're using this against 3 or more enemies, this is really, really bad. And even against 2 enemies, like I said, it's possible that, for example, one of the 2 enemies is really powerful, and the other one not so much. And it's possible that the enemy that isn't powerful gets hit 4 times, and the other one doesn't. And that can happen. Although, as far as I know, if a shot hits an enemy, and that enemy dies from that damage, then it can't be hit anymore, and all further shots will hit the other character. That's at least as far as I know. So small enemies that die in one of those hits won't take up too much of that damage. That said, also, the damage that you get from it isn't very high. Like, each shot only does about 240% damage at Magia level 5, which isn't a whole lot. Of course, if you're using this against a singular enemy, that is a lot, but even just against 2 enemies, it's possible that it does really, really crap damage against one of them. What else does it do? It gives chance to defense pierce to self, 75%. Why 75%? Why not 100? I'm telling you why, because the Doppel does 100%, and I guess they didn't want to give the 100% to the Magia already, so instead it's only 75%, which is bad, because if you really, really need this, then having it fail 1 in 4 times is probably going to be pretty bad. Although, apart from that, 75% defense pierce. So when is defense pierce actually important? If you're in mirrors, Defense Pierce is incredibly powerful. Like this is the place where Defense Pierce is the most powerful in mirrors. However, if you're using a Magia in mirrors, you're probably about to end the fight. And if you're about to end the fight, what use is it to give yourself Defense Pierce to do more damage? Kind of seems pointless at that point because the fight is already over. What else does it do? Fog against hit enemies. Once again, you can basically just repeat whatever I just said about the fog up here on the connect. Fog is just a very bad effect in general. It's not something you should rely on. So overall, this is not that great of a Magia. It can be good against singular targets, like I've said, or if you really, really need the Defense Pierce for some reason. So it can be really good. But that's just not enough for this to be an amazing character, for the Magia to only be good sometimes, and most of the times to not be that great for a Magia character that you put into your team. So overall, sadly, kind of underwhelming. However, what about her Spirit Enhance? So we look at her Spirit Enhance, there's of course a bunch of Magia damage up nodes, which makes sense, use a Magia character. MP gain up. Sure, that's all something you need. Some more MP gain up over 100 MP than other characters have. All of those nodes you expect a Magia character to have, okay? But what is actually special, okay? Special about Nagisa is she gets 15% evade chance and 15% chance to get a Dazzle on connect. Wow. So, as Edwin points out in chat, of course, if you're using this against a PvE boss, then it would be really, it will of course be nice to have multiple hits against a singular boss. However, most really powerful PvE bosses occupy multiple tiles, and if a boss occupies multiple tiles, you might as well use an AoE Magia instead. So, still not actually that amazing. So the Dazzle on attack that I just mentioned, Dazzle is one of the best effects in the entire game, so being able to inflict that on attack is quite alright, but it's basically the only really noteworthy node out of this entire thing. What about the active though? The active gives evade 100%, that's really good, and chance to ignore damage cut. Wait, that's also really good. So the active can actually be really good, but also kind of depending on situation. Of course, if you use the active and you don't get attacked, the evade part does nothing, right? Or if the enemy has anti-evade. So yeah, it can potentially do nothing on the defensive side. On the offensive side, damage cut. Damage cut in mirrors is actually something that most people have. Not most people, but a lot of really powerful characters have at least 10% damage cut. And being able to ignore that is kind of alright. But even that said, it's a rather small bonus. But it's a rather welcome bonus as well. If you ever do need it, it will be important. So overall, apart from her being an Excel Gorilla, who is offensively oriented, she doesn't really have much to her. Like, yeah, you can pump out a bunch of Magia with her. She's gonna hit pretty hard with her discs and her Magia, I guess, if it's a single target. But she doesn't really have anything super duper special about her, right? However, and this is kind of where the entire thing shifts a bit, we still haven't looked at her personal. Oh, a hospital room shrouded in darkness. By the way, read Nagisa's Wish event story. It's one of the best event stories out there. One of my favorites. One of my top 3 favorites. So this Memoria might as well read Anti-Mummy. Because Mummy does bind and burn on both her Magia and Connect. It's anti both of those. And Mummy hits hard, so you got Endure. This is the anti-Mummy memo, but it does more than that too. Bind and burn are of course powerful status effects that you never ever want to have on your characters, so being immune to both of those is really nice. But more importantly, the Endure means that you can kind of do some cheeky stuff in PvP. So in mirrors, if you see a Nagisa, that Nagisa will probably have this Memoria right here and will be able to tank an additional hit. And that's kind of where Nagisa can become rather interesting, in that you can use her in mirrors as sort of a gimmick character, someone who just has Endure and can bypass enemy damage cut with the active to sort of like try and cheat some victories. You might call Nagisa a cheese character, and she very much is a cheese character. That's, I think, the best way you can describe her. Of course, because she's an Excel Gorilla, you can just play her as a mana fountain to just keep getting MP by repeatedly using Excel combos. But overall, she's mostly a cheese character. Now, do you know who is not a cheese character? Nagisa. Oh, I mean, this Nagisa. That's a chocolate character. What? So we have Valentine's Nagisa, who is known as the Queen of Mirrors. Most people probably already know about all the stuff that's really, really good about Valentine's Nagisa, but of course, this video is not for people who already know that stuff. This video is for people who don't know that stuff, so let's go over it. We have 2 Excelders, 2 Blasters. Sadly, we aren't an Excel Gorilla anymore, which is actually really sad, but that's still fine. She's a Cycles support, although that's a bit of a misnomer, because she's a Cycles attacker, actually, or a Cycles balance, Cycles defense. I think Cycles balance would be best. For some reason, she's a support though, okay? Ignore the type. The type makes no sense. She should be a balance type. So she has a personal, just like regular Nagisa. However, it's terrible. This is one of the worst personals in the entire game. So let's just ignore it and move on without the personal, because it's terrible. Look at her stats, and her stats are, yeah, balanced, very balanced. She has got a whole bunch of attack and some defense and some pretty medium HP, very much balanced across the board. Overall not as high as other characters because she gets the penalty from being a support type for some reason. But the thing is, we're gonna see in a second that her stats aren't really that important. So her connect, you know how I just said that Nagisa, regular Nagisa's connect? If you look down at it, it's actually not amazing. Like, fog isn't that amazing, anti-evade is not amazing, attack up is standard. Let's look at a connect. That is actually really good. Damage up 40%. Damage up is better than attack up on a connect, that is. That's really good. What else does it do? It gives ignore damage cut 100%, which is still not going to be that amazing in most cases, but once again, if there are cases where this will be important, it will be amazing. And there are cases in Mirrors where you will really want to use this. For example, let's say you're in Mirrors and the enemy, for example, has a Yachio or Iroyachio, both of these, or a Kokoro. Any of these characters, they're all light type, apart from regular Yachio, because we're dark type, right? We're dark type, yeah. All of them have an active that gives damage cut. But of course, with this connect, you can bash through that damage cut. So if, for example, you're in Mirrors, you have 2 or 3 characters, your Valentine's Nagisa gets a Puella combo on turn 1, and then on the enemy's turn 1, they activate Yachio active, or Iroyachi active, or Kokoro active, something like that. You can then use a connect to bash through that active and kill them through it, and that's actually kind of amazing. What else does it do? Defense up. Fine. Okay, that's good. This is the kind of effect where I'll never say this is terrible or bad, but it's also not something that's great, because once again, it kind of depends on the enemy actually attacking that character, and I think that if you buff this to someone in Mirrors, they won't get attacked anymore because they have too much defense to be attacked. So keep that in mind as well. But I guess you can use this on a damage dealer that is about to get attacked, and then they won't get attacked anymore because they now have way too much defense to be targeted anymore, which can also backfire if they use this on someone who you might want to get targeted, but they're getting a Puella combo, so might as well. And then they don't get targeted and someone else gets targeted and they die instead. That sucks. So keep this in mind, that you can sort of make enemies target other characters by buffing their defense. Overall, though, a pretty good connect. Overall, I think this is pretty good. Mostly because on one hand, damage cut ignore can be really, really good in PvP. Most importantly, damage up, and the defense up is still nice, at least. Now, the Magia we see out here: damage all enemies, HP restore, remove debuffs. HP restore, remove debuffs. That's very defensive, right? In most cases, just a one-time defensive buff. That won't do much, right? Well, you're right. In most cases, this won't do that much. This won't be that amazing. But we'll see later why. This is actually really important. Mirror's AI manipulation is indeed not that straightforward as some people might think. However, let's get to Spirit Enhancement. So we see that it has chance of skill seal on attack. I'd rather take the fog, to be honest. I'd rather take the fog. What does it do? Magic damage up. Okay, blast damage up. Those are very standard notes. Anti-bind, that's fine. So you know how the regular Nagisa memo gives anti-bind? Well, Valentine's Nagisa just has that passively through Spirit Enhancement. Awesome, at least one part of that. Sadly not the endure part, at least not passively. We got a chance to evade, just like regular Nagisa did. Amazing. And also, we might have seen this from the Connect already, chance to ignore damage cut. Oh, here we have it passively on Valentine's Nagisa herself. Once again, if you're playing this in mirrors, you can sometimes punch through enemy defensive setups by just proccing the Astok Adept, the chance to ignore damage cut. Also really awesome. More importantly though, keep this in mind, if you're playing mirrors against an enemy team that has Valentine's Nagisa on them, and you're playing a strategy around damage cut, like you have your own Yachio for example, it's possible that if you don't kill the enemy's Valentine's Nagisa immediately, that she will just turn around and kill you in one hit or two hits. And that sucks, right? So keep that in mind, that enemy's Nagisas can indeed destroy your damage cut setups. What else do we have? Oh, what is this? We start the battle with 30 MP? That's kind of amazing. Oh my god. What else is this down here? The active Endure? Skill Quicken? Wait a second. Our defense isn't that great. By the way, people think that Valentine's Nagisa is a tank. She's not. Valentine's Nagisa is not a tank at all. She is less tanky than most damage dealers. Keep that in mind. She's more on the squishy, not on the squishy side, but she's like average. She's like average tankability, right? She's not a tank. People just play her like that. So here's the thing. Because she has low defense, she might get attacked early, but she has Endure active. So she's gonna stay alive, even though she gets attacked early. Meaning you not just have her stay alive, but also other people get defended by this. Also, welcome to stream, Dilorana. How you doing, my girl? Also, the other part, Skill Quicken. So this is actually probably the best part, in my opinion, about the entirety of Valentine's Nagisa, because in mirrors, especially ranked mirrors, where you want to keep everyone as healthy as possible and where you get bonus points for using active Memoria, because you give yourself Skill Quicken and Endure, you're gonna survive turn 1, very likely, almost guaranteed. And then on turn 2, you've got Memoria, so you can use Quell Bloom, for example, on the enemy. You can maybe use a heal Memoria if you want to. You can basically do anything. If you use something like Quell Bloom, you're basically guaranteed to not take any more damage. If you use like Quell Bloom and Negotiator. Keep in mind, in mirrors, in ranked mirrors, you get more points, not just by using more active Memoria, but also the more healthy your units are. For every point of HP your units have, they get more. Okay, not for every point, but if your units are healthy at the end of a fight, you get more points. And if you use something like a Quell Bloom and a Negotiator on turn 2, you're basically taking 0 damage. You're basically taking 0 damage. Well, 250. The minimum amount of damage you can possibly take, which is kind of absurd. This is kind of absurd. You can just do that on turn 2, guaranteed, because this is 100% Skill Quicken. Now, you combine that with the fact that you start the battle on 30 MP, and you can get to Magia rather quickly because of that, especially if you put an MP start Memoria on this, like I think the journey starts here. I'm going to look it up very quickly, but there's a Memoria that basically everyone who wants to rank really, really high in rank mirrors uses. And if you start the battle with this Memoria, okay, this is the one. You start the battle with 50 MP. You start the battle with 50 MP. Okay, 50 MP you start the battle with this Memoria, which most people that want to rank high mirrors use. You get to Magia really fast. So you get to Magia really, really fast. You have your active Memoria on top of that. You're not gonna die because you have Endure. You might get a connect, and if you do get a connect with Ignore Damage Cut, you can make sure to punch through tanks. And with the defense up, people are gonna stay alive as well. So people are gonna stay alive with defense up as well. Even more stuff to stay alive with. With turn 2 actives is absurd. And then on top of all of that, so far we're already looking at absolutely amazing ranked mirror stuff. But it doesn't end there. If you use Magia, it heals your entire team. I said earlier, in most cases this won't do much, but if you're in ranked mirrors, you get more points if your team stays healthy at the end of the battle. So if you heal your team right as the battle ends, you get more points. And so Vampire Nagisa. I'm talking so much about Vampire Kanagi. Valentine's Nagisa. By the way, there's 2 characters now. We're called V Nagi. Thanks, Dark Souls. If you throw all into a pot, she survives turn 1. She gets turn 2 active memos. She starts the battle with bonus Magia, so she gets to MP really, really fast. She has a connect that keeps people alive. She has a Magia that heals people at the end of a battle, like even when enemies die. If you combine all of that, you get the absolute perfect storm of just stuff that makes you, sorry for the microphone, that just makes you get more points in ranked mirrors. And that is why Valentine's Nagisa is the second best character in ranked mirrors. The best character is Sudachi. So yeah, she's the queen of ranked mirrors. What about outside of ranked mirrors? Well, you can play the same strategy you play in ranked mirrors in regular mirrors and still win regular mirrors rather nicely. What about outside of that? What about in PvE? In PvE, she's somewhat not actually that great. Like in PvE, her Magia effects aren't that amazing. And her connect is pretty nice still, but there are way better connects out there. So for connect-wise, there are way better connects out there. Magia-wise, it's not actually that great. Spirit Enhancement-wise, you get 1 skill quicken every 7 turns, which is, if you were to convert that into a passive effect, would be about a 17% skill quicken. That means, as I said, Sudachi is at number 1. So if you convert the skill quicken active in 7 turns into a passive, it would be 17% chance, and most other supports get 15%, so it's not even that much better than other characters. And the damage cut, ignore, isn't that important, neither is the anti-bind. So in PvE, she's kind of boring. She really doesn't do a whole lot in PvE. She's actually kind of bad in PvE. But in mirrors, she's the queen. That was it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. That's important, apparently. And I'll see you guys next time, girls. Today I'm gonna call everyone a girl. See you guys next time.